Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to counter all 88 brawlers in the game right now. So it's going to be about 2 or 3 brawlers that are just really good at countering that specific brawler. So you've got to bear in mind as well, it's going to be brawlers in similar game modes slash situations. For example, I'm not going to tell you guys to counter Ash by outranging him on shooting star with a sniper, for example. That's just idiotic. We're going to try and say to like similar situations and like grassy maps, for example, how to counter tanks there. But again, this is going to really help you further understand how to counter the meta, especially in ranked. When you're trying to draft, you always got to think about, well, who counters who, so you can give yourself the best position to win. But let's jump into it straight away. We're going to be starting off with 8-bit. So 8-bit's best counters, of course, first one's going to be Penny. Penny's really good at countering 8-bit because he's super slow, can feed Penny turret. The Penny turret can just help kill 8-bit and destroy 8-bit's turret. Same goes with Brock again. You can open up the walls to just destroy 8-bit's turret and destroy 8-bit because he's super slow. And then you got like Squeak and Piper as well. With Amber, it's actually pretty difficult because Amber's just pretty good into everything, but there's a few counters to take note of. So the first one is going to be like maybe like Piper, Belle. So normally when you see Amber and like Heist, for example, you want to go with those snipers, but still Amber can still be pretty annoying against those because she's kind of a little bit tanky. The next one's going to be Cole. So Cole's really good into Amber because he's got quite a lot of HP. Flying Hook and Protector Parrot can help confirm kills onto Amber pretty easily. Next up, Pam. So Pam's not the greatest in the meta, but because of the gadget, you can remove all of Amber's ammo. So just an okay counter. And then lastly, Crow. So Crow's really good against Amber because, again, similar range, and it's just really been annoying to face off against Crows and Amber. With Angelo, the first counter is Kit. So Kit can actually just free swipe Angelo if he doesn't have the shield gear. Also, you got the fact that once Kit jumps onto Angelo when Angelo's on water, it actually just stuns locks him, whilst Kit can actually kill him whilst Angelo's still stunned, which is just crazy interaction. On bridge too far. Juan Carlos tried it, but it was for good reason to counter Angelo. Then we've got Max. So again, you want to be really aggressive with Max into the Angelo, using your gadget to tank those shots and just keep the aggression because Angelo won't have the time to charge up his shots. And then lastly, Nanny. So I really like Nanny into Angelo, mainly just because of the return to sender, and you can outrange Angelo. So with Ash, of course, anti-tanks are going to be good against him, but I think with the help of his rats and his heal gadget, he can actually beat some of these anti-tanks. So I would actually recommend fellow tanks against Ash because he hasn't got the DPS to kill them. So first off, we have Rosa. So Rosa's always been a really popular brawler to draft into Ash on maps like, I don't know, Sneaky Fields, any bushy brawlable map. Rosa's really good into Ash. Then you've got Frank. Of course, a good Ash can sometimes win this matchup, but most of the time, a good Frank should just destroy Ash. There's nothing that Ash can do into Frank. And then lastly, Bull. Again, any grassy map, Bull can just easily stomp onto Ash, get close, and destroy him before Ash can even blink. With Barley, his counters are pretty obvious. The likes of any assassin, it's going to be really difficult for Barley to deal with. He's super squishy. Although he has his slow gadget, it's just really difficult to kill them. So the likes of Mico, Kenji, Edgar, and Mortis, they just have a field day with Barley. So next up, we have B. So B is actually a good, well-rounded brawler. The biggest counters to her are typically going to be throwers because she is super squishy, although you don't always play B on a map with a bunch of walls. But yeah, that's really annoying for her. Next, we've got Piper. So again, any brawler that's going to outrange B, like Nanny, Piper, Mandy, are going to be good into it. That's why I don't typically see B on like Shooting Star or other bounty long-range maps. You typically see her on Gem Grab, Hot Zone, and Brawl Ball. But again, you know, brawlers like Mr.P are going to be good into her because although she has unlimited ammo, she just doesn't deal enough damage to consistently kill the porters, and she'll never be able to kill Mr.P's super because she doesn't deal enough damage. So with Belle, it's same type of counters as all snipers receive. You've got the likes of Nanny. So again, Nanny will outrange your Belle, and then you've got Return to Sender. It's just really difficult for Belle to win that, especially on an open map. You've next got Darryl. So I'm talking about like Knockout Bounty. Darryl is a really good late pick option, and there's just nothing Belle can really do into Darryl because of the 2 supers and the shield reduction. Yeah, Belle just stands no chance against that. And then lastly, Piper. Piper, again, it's going to be really good into Belle. The thing is with Belle, a good Belle player can still win some of these matchups, so it all just depends on whether you're tapping and making use of that star power. With Barry, it's actually pretty obvious. Again, assassins are going to be good against Barry. I know he's got a knockback, but most of the time, they should just be able to then just go after him anyways, even after his super as well. He's really squishy. So the first counter is actually going to be a thrower. Barley is such a good counter to Barry because, of course, Barry normally has a lot of like area control with a super, etc. Well, Barley just needs to shoot where the enemies are just healing, and he's going to farm a lot of super from this. So it's just going to allow him to get the brawlers away from Barry's ice cream. So really good counter. Kenji's also a really good counter to Barry because again, you got the fact that Kenji can just keep up the pressure, and then with his super he can snipe the people trying to get heals from Barry's super, etc. And the same goes with Mortis as well. Mortis is just constantly going to be on top of Barry. So next with Bibi, it's actually pretty obvious. Again, you want a brawler that interrupts her knockback, and there's nothing that she can really do. She gets abused by those type of brawlers. So first off, we have Surge. So Surge can just feed his levels easily from Bibi just because they're keeping the range. She has very limited range. And then of course you got his super to knock her back, and again just destroy her with a quick unload speed. Then you've got Primo. Primo's really good into Bibi because you got a super to interrupt her knockback. You've also got the gadget to interrupt it. Bibi just doesn't stand a chance. And then you've got Cordelius and Shelly. So Cordelius is really good into Bibi again because you can always keep the distance. And then Shelly as well because super just interrupts and you just destroy her. With Bo, it's actually pretty simple. Again, the snipers are going to have a really good time against Bo. Although he has a decent amount of HP, he has a limited range in comparison to those long range brawlers. So that's why you don't really see him at the top level on like Shooting Star and other bounty knockout maps. So snipers like Piper are going to be really good into Bo. And then you've got Stu. So those kind of medium maps where you might see him in like hot zone. Stu's really good against Bo because he's super mobile. He's going to be able to avoid the mines easily. Also avoid the attacks really easily as well. Stu can actually juke in and out of the arrows, believe it or not. So kind of crazy. Same with Max as well. Good Max players can just keep on top of Bo. Bo doesn't like it when there's really aggressive brawlers. So Max is really good for that. And then lastly, Leon. Leon as well. There's nothing that Bo can really do into a Leon if he's being super sneaky and getting on top of Bo. Bo just doesn't have the quick damage to kill him. With Bonnie, it's actually pretty simple. I know she's one of the worst brawlers in the game, so technically all brawlers will counter her right now. But Bonnie can actually win some of her matchups with her super. For example, some snipers might be good into her, then she has her super, but that's just the kind of going rate with a lot of brawlers. Anyways, Piper's really good into Bonnie and always has been because you can just keep the range easily. Bonnie's really slow without the gadget, so it just easy shots to hit. Next up, we've got Darryl. So Darryl's really good with Bonnie because, again, Bonnie just doesn't have the DPS to kill Darryl. And then even if Bonnie jumps away, blah, 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 Darryl has two supers, so he can easily just make amends with any mistake he makes and just kill her. Next, we've got RT. So again, RT should be able to compete pretty easily with Bonnie in that 1 versus 1 sniper form. And then if Bonnie wants to jump onto RT, stands no chance because RT can just delete her as soon as he jumps on top. And then Colette as well. Colette's actually pretty good for those kind of weird maps. I don't know, like Heist, for example. Bonnie has a lot of HP, so Colette will just feed super from her easily. So with Brock, the key to actually countering him is to try and stay within the medium distance because, of course, you can juke out the rocket. But once it explodes, the rocket is actually much bigger in radius. So just bear that in mind with Brock. So, of course, Max is going to be really good into a Brock. A good Max will just destroy Brock in the open. Literally, Brock doesn't stand a chance. You can easily just gadget up and get into Brock's face. Then you've got Nanny, Piper, and Mandy, of course, the 3 snipers that counter the other snipers. Brock is pretty squishy, so a couple of taps from any of these snipers will kill Brock easily. So with Bull, it's pretty simple. You got to look at the anti-tanks. So again, Bull isn't the best brawler in the game right now, so anti-tanks will just rip through him. You got the likes of Nita. Nita's really good against Bull. He will just feed so many Nita bears, and then you got a stun on top of that, or just any gadget. Bull can't deal with it. And then you've got Griff. Of course, Griff's going to be really good into Bull to open up the map, and then you've got the super that just shreds Bull up close. Doesn't stand a chance. And then you've got Gale with the tornado and just overall a good anti-tank. Buster is next, and it's actually pretty difficult to kill a good Buster player because Buster's just good into everything, but you're going to mainly counter him through other tanks. So first one's going to be Rosa. Rosa's going to be really good, especially once they get close to Buster. With this shield, there's nothing Buster can do because he lacks the DPS, especially up close. And then you've got Darryl as well. Darryl with the rolls, there's just nothing that really Buster can really do. The super's not going to really help him there, and you don't want to pull a Darryl closer to you because Darryl will deal way more damage than a Buster can deal. Same goes with like Jacky. Seen Jacky actually play into Buster sometimes on maps like Undermine. You've also got Buzz, who can stun Buster and just out DPS him up close, and then Primo as well. So next up with Buzz, a lot of brawlers that you think might counter Buzz, he can still win because of his super. So the main one is going to be Surge. Of course, Surge can just easily feed away from the Buzz, and then you've got the super, which you can use to juke Buzz's super as well. And yeah, Buzz just stands no chance. Next, Gale again. You want to use your super onto Gale. Well, he's got a super to counter that and a gadget. Nothing Buzz can really do about that. And then you've got Jacky again. Like if you go onto a Jacky as a Buzz, there's nothing you can do. Jacky will just outrange and out damage in every way possible. Buzz stands no chance. So next we have Buzz Lightyear. I know that he's going to be removed in like a week or so, but it'd be good to look back on his best counters. So taking a look first at at his Saber form, the best counters are just going to be anti-tanks, primarily like Gale, Surge, etc. Maybe like other tanks are pretty decent into him as well. And then you've got wing mode. So the best way to counter wing mode is just basically outranging him, trying to keep your distance as much as possible because he really lacks the range. And then of course you've got laser mode. So you've either got really like assassins, so like Kenji, Mortis, I can get on top of him because his super deals no damage, or throwers because he's super squishy. So with Byron, again, it's going to be the same fate of other snipers, the likes of Piper, Nanny, and Mandy are going to be really good against Byron, especially on those open maps. But Piper's probably the best one because you can easily get a double tap in, and you know, normally play Piper and like gem grab where you see Byron in other situations, so Piper's really good. Next, we've got kind of a counter to Byron's kind of synergy. So Byron likes to be paired with tanks a lot of the time, so you want to go with like Clancy or Lou, because again, normally you see Byron with like a tank, and Lou and Clancy just rip through tanks even with the heals, so that's why they're good counters. And then you got Sprout. So again, in that 1 versus 1, Sprout is so good against Byron because Byron's got no way to kill Sprout, while Sprout can just easily destroy him in a couple of hits. So we have Colt. So he actually shares a lot of the same counters as Buzz, but Buzz also being one of his main counters. The reason why Buzz is so good is because it's pretty easy to just gadget onto Colt. Colt doesn't have the quick DPS to deal with any tanks close up, and then Buzz of course has the stun to interrupt Colt's super. Colt hates his super being interrupted. That's by far his biggest annoyance. So brawlers like Surge as well, big DPS up close, and then you've got the super to cancel out Colt's super. And then you've got Darryl as well. Darryl has 2 supers that can just interrupt Colt really easily, and of course Darryl can easily just roll onto Colt. And then you've got like Jacky, and you've also got Jean. Jean's a really good one into Colt. So next up we have Charlie. So Charlie's pretty simple to counter in this meta because she's terrible, but for the most part you want to look at brawlers that either pierce through her pets or just simply outrange her. So the first one is Penny. So Penny, I think, will outrange her, or at least be similar range, but the big thing is just shooting through her spiders. You know, literally Charlie can't do anything about that. Normally competitive, if you face off against Penny, you probably want to switch gadgets and not use spiders, so bear that in mind. A Penny will just destroy Charlie anyways. And then you've got any type of thrower really, because Charlie has no way to kind of close that gap. She's got decent HP, but throwers typically are played on maps that Charlie are pretty good on, especially in Brawl Gem Grab. So the likes of Barley, for example, really good into Charlie. And then you've got like Lawrie again, you've got Juju. So mainly throwers are the best way because Charlie is an anti-tank. So next up we have Chester. So of course Chester has a limited range, but you only really see Chester on like Gem Grab, Brawl, and Hot Zone. So look at similar lanes for this. So first one's going to be Janet. So Janet will outrange a Chester. I know Chester have decent HP, but he can never really close the gap onto a Janet. And again, you don't use Chester to counter brawlers like Janet, so just going to get destroyed. Same goes with Amber as well. I know sometimes he might be able to sneak upon an Amber, but if Amber destroys the grass and just keeps the range, Chester can't really do anything about that matchup. And then lastly, you've got like some Stu. So Stu can be pretty good into a Chester because he can always like dodge in and out of his attacks and also his super. And then you've got Gale as well. So Gale should be able to outrange a Chester and just win that interaction. So now moving on to Chuck. So Chuck is only used in heist, so bear this in mind. He's going to be much easily countered in other game modes where you just need like a big damage dealer to kill him. But the first one is going to be Cordelius. So Cordelius is really good into a Chuck, especially on heist, because once Chuck supers in, and then you can use Cordelius's super, and Chuck can no longer of course use his, and he's just completely isolated, and Chuck is terrible with his main attack. So Cordelius just destroys that. One of the best counters in pro play. Another counter is to simply go more damage, especially in heist. I'll see a lot of people ask this question. Go big damage brawlers and just ignore the Chuck. So you want to go like Colt, Bull, any brawler that can get onto the high safe, Brock, etc. Big damage, big tanks. Just ignore the Chuck and go for the high safe. You've also got the likes of Angelo. I think Angelo is a good counter to Chuck, especially in heist, because he can just clean up. He can easily stay away from the post, being able to float over the water, so bear that in mind. And then you've got like Clancy, who can just wait for Chuck and just destroy him with his super. And then you've got Melodie. Melody's really good into Chuck because you can just farm super from the Chuck and just go on the counter attack. Clancy is next, and it's pretty easy to counter him in this meta, but of course him being an anti-tank, you want to use counters to anti-tanks. So typically like Belle or other range brawlers are going to be good into Clancy. Keep your distance and don't allow him to feed his super and his tokens, of course. And then you've got the likes of Tara. So pets are going to be really good into Clancy at that first level. You want to keep Clancy at first level for as long as possible because of course he absolutely sucks. He's only got 1 attack. And then Penny. Penny's really good into Clancy even when he reaches his maximum form because she can keep distance, she can use gadget to tank, etc. Clancy just can't kill a Penny. So next up we have Colette. So again, she's an anti-tank, so just look for like snipers and throwers, etc. to try and destroy these brawlers. So first off, it's going to be Belle. The reason reason being is because on Heist, you see a lot of Colette, and that's where Belle comes into the equation. Belle can outrange a Colette. You've also got the super just to target Colette and gets more value out of the more, of course, tanky brawlers. Belle's just always been good into Colette since competitive days. And then you've got Stu. Stu's really good into Colette. Again, you can just easily just abuse that matchup. Colette just stands no chance. Will often miss super against Stu as well because of how agile he is. And then you've got B. B again used quite a few times in Heist literally to counter Colette, to shut Colette down with the super, etc. And then you've got Griff as well. Griff is used so much to counter Colette because you've got his business resilient star power, which essentially means Colette can't two-shot and then super Griff. Normally Colette's got that combination, right, where she shoots twice and supers every brawler in the game if they don't have the shield gear or like some type of shield mechanic, whilst Griff can just heal up automatically through his star power, so he counters. And then Jessie as well is a really good counter to Colette. So next up we have Colt. So again, the biggest counters to Colt are going to be those longer range brawlers. So this is why I just laugh when I see a Colt in like bounty and knockout, because they just clearly don't know that snipers rip through him. So Piper eats Colt for dinner, literally. And Heist is just such a free matchup. One tap and then you can just click auto aim gadget, dead every single time. Belle again a really good counter to Colt because you can easily just keep the distance, like I think 3 tap Colt most of the time, 4 tap, whatever. Same goes with Gus again on those longer range maps. Gus can just easily destroy Colt. With Cordelius, you want similar range brawlers, so you've got likes of Frank. So Frank's really good into Cordelius because literally Cord can't get into distance and Frank will just win that with the amount of HP he has. Same goes with Buster as well. Buster's really good into Cordelius, can actually out damage him at a similar level. Same goes with Surge. Cordelius can't do anything to Surge with a fast unload speed and similar range, and Nita as well, because Nita can just feed Bear so easily and just keep distance away from Cordelius. So next up we have Crows. So we've got a lot of similar counters here with the likes of Piper. So snipers are going to be really good into Crow on Heist because you can just keep distance easily, and a couple of taps you're going to be able to kill Crow with ease. And then you've got Spike. Spike's a really good counter to Crow because you've got the gadget which can just tank a lot of Crow shots. There's similar like kind of range as well. I know Crow can juke curveball with the extra movement speed, but Spike deals a lot of damage quickly, so Spike can easily kill a Crow. And then you've got tanks as well. So I know Crow will feed a lot of supers from tanks, but he will just never be able to kill them because he really lacks the damage. So now moving on to Darryl. So Darryl is a funny one because in 1v1 situations, Darryl is so good because of the rework. Getting 2 supers is insane, and Darryl can actually counter a lot of anti-tanks, but the biggest annoyance is definitely going to be Cordelius because you can't use another super, of course, whilst you're in the Shadow Realm, and then you interrupt Darryl's super as well. It's just so annoying. He doesn't get the knockback, etc. And then you've got Otis as well. So Otis, again, Darryl can't use his second super. Otis, as soon as you land on Otis, super, dead. He's just really hard. And then you've got Clancy as well. Clancy can just feed a lot of supers from the Darryl and just eventually shred through him. So with Doug, it's actually pretty simple because he's the worst brawler in the game. But if you're looking for big counters, first one's going to be Frank, because Frank just destroys Doug. Nothing that Doug can do to avoid any of Frank's supers, etc. And they kind of play on the same maps. Frank just destroys him. And then you've got Clancy. Again, Clancy just rips through Doug. Nothing Doug can do. There's no way for him to escape or, you know, close the gap, etc. And then you've got Griff. Griff is really annoying for a Doug because Griff can always keep distance because he's always breaking the walls. With Draco, definitely the biggest annoyance to him is interrupting his super, so it completely wastes it. That's really, really annoying for him. So the first brawler is going to be Lou because you can actually interrupt that super with his stun or freeze mechanic. And then also it's just because Lou's a really good anti-tank. You typically see Draco on good game modes where Lou's really good on. So for example, Hot Zone, Lou's the king of Hot Zone, or just even before Lou was buffed, Lou always countered Draco. Just makes more sense. You've also got Nita as well. Nita's really good into Draco because Nita Bear will just rip through all of Draco's ammo, especially with the shield gadget as well. And then you've got Frank. Again, Draco just can't do anything into Frank whatsoever. Even if Frank was heavily nerfed, it's just impossible. So countering Dynamike is really simple. You just need to open your eyes. Well, Dynamike players can still somewhat counter his counters, except for Mico. Mico's going to be by far the biggest counter to Dynamike because Mico can just jump over the walls and just easily avoid Dynamike's attacks. Mortis, of course, is going to be really good into Dynamike. A good Dynamike can predict Mortis's dashes sometimes with a stun gadget or Dyna jump over walls, etc. But it's not near enough off like a 99% Mortis win. And then you've got Kenji as well. Kenji is similar to Mortis. You've got Edgar as well. Again, good Dynamites can predict Edgar jumping in, but for the most part, it's really difficult. And other throwers in like game modes like Knockout and Bounty, Dynamite could just get destroyed by that. So with Edgar in a 1v1 situation, it's actually pretty difficult to beat Edgar in a 1 versus 1. The biggest kind of counter to him is the fact that his super charge rate just takes so long without his gadget. So the big counter, of course, is going to be Surge. When I'm playing Showdown, Surge just rips through Edgar. Nothing he can do with the super quick unload speed, etc. And then you got Doug. Again, with an Edgar, you don't want to be jumping onto a Doug because you've got the double damage gadget with Doug. Edgar's just no chance with the healing, etc. You've also got Jacky, again, similar to Doug. Just nothing Edgar can do in that 1 versus 1 DPS department. And then, of course, you got Shelly. You don't want to be jumping onto a Shelly with Edgar because, yeah, Shelly will just destroy him. With Primo, it's actually pretty difficult to destroy him in a 1 versus 1 because his super actually allows him just to beat so many brawlers. You've seen when he got a rework years ago, he quickly became the best brawler in the game because he got his super too frequently. Literally, that is it. So the best brawler is going to be Cordelius because, again, you're limiting Primo. He's not able to use his super. And, of course, he has very limited range. So it's basically a sitting duck, nothing he can do. Then you've got Gale. Again, Primo can't jump onto a Gale because of the tornado gadget, the pushback, etc. He just can't get in range whatsoever against a Gale. And then, of course, you've got Shelly as well. I know you can beat Shelly, really, because of his super and his gadget, but for the most part, it's still pretty difficult. So for Ems right now, it's actually pretty easy to counter Ems. A lot of the time, you just want to outrange her, especially on the game modes where she's supposed to be good in, like Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, and Hot Zone. There's so many lane brawlers that just keep her at bay with ease. First brawler, of course, is going to be Mortis. Mortis just destroys Ems, even with the knockback. Just make sure that you're trying to stay near a wall if Ems knocks you back. Then you have a shorter distance to close her down. Again, it's just so free. Then, of course, you've got throwers. Throwers are really annoying for Barley, for Ems to face off against. So throwers like Barley, like I just mentioned, Juju, Lawrie, etc. And then you've got brawlers like Janet. So Janet can outrange an Ems, and especially where you play Ems on those bushy maps, you've got the gadget to kind of scout an Ems, and you're just easily going to be able to keep your distance against Ems. Now moving on to Eve. So Eve is actually a pretty difficult one in this meta because she's like A tier thanks to the hypercharge. So typically snipers will be good into Eve even because of her super. Like you'd think that the hatchlings will be able to eat some ammo. They don't really, but the hypercharged one really does. So I do recommend Piper as like a soft counter, but then again, Eve can take over the map if there's multiple snipers. And then you've got Penny. Penny's definitely the biggest one because Penny can just pierce through the hatchlings with one shot with ease. And then you got her super as well just to destroy the hatchlings. Really easy. Penny can just win that 1v1 so simply. Janet is also a pretty good counter to Eve because again, she can just pierce through the hatchlings with one shot. And then you've also got brawlers like Max or any brawler that's able to like get personal, up close and personal with Eve because Eve's main attack is actually pretty easy to avoid. So if you've got someone with a quick agile movement, they're able to get close to Eve with ease. So with Fang, it's pretty simple. You want to go for the anti-tanks. First off, we have Clancy. Clancy can just feed from a Fang. And if Fang wants to super onto Clancy, well, he's an idiot because Clancy's super damage is just insane. And then again, you've got Otis. So very similar to like a Darryl, well, countering Darryl because Otis can just super a Fang and just stop him in his tracks. And then, of course, Fang can't use his super to escape, blah, blah, blah. Then you've got Shelly as well. Again, you don't want to be super onto a Shelly because you're just going to get insane damage dealt to you. And then you got Gale as well because Fang just literally can't even get close to Gale thanks to the gadget and super. So Frank, it's actually pretty difficult to counter him in his current state because of the hypercharge and the recent rework to his mechanic where he's able to shoot faster the lower the HP is. But of course, the best counter by far is going to be Colette. So a lot of pros literally have to play Colette in the really weirdest situations because it's the only way that you can counter Frank in draft. So yeah, but Colette, again, biggest counter by far because he's got a lot of HP. Colette can also interrupt his super with push it, star power. And then you got Primo as well. Primo is probably the best tank, well, definitely the best tank into a Frank because you got the gadget to interrupt his attack, interrupt his super. You got a super to interrupt Frank's attack and super, etc. Primo destroys him. And then you've got anti-tanks that can open up the map or just shred him pretty quickly. So Griff to open up the map. Of course, Frank doesn't really want that. And then you've got Chester as well to rip for him up close. And then he's also got a wall break super. So with Gale, we've got to look at typical lanes that are, of course, aren't like anti-tanks, but are good into other lanes. So Gale's an anti-tank. Janet is good into Gale. Janet outranges Gale and played in similar game modes. So you want to keep on to that matchup. You just win that with ease. Easily outrange him, easily out-wall peek him, etc. And then you got Amber as well. So Amber's played in similar situations, outranges Gale. So you should have a better matchup overall. And then you've got Lawrie. Again, Gale can't really deal with throwers. He is a bit on the tankier side. So he's not going to get like destroyed by throwers. But again, he's an anti-tank. So throwers destroy anti-tanks. And then you've got Penny as well. Similar similar, well, not similar range. Penny will outrange Gale easily. Penny just has a field day on Gale. So now moving into one of my brawler mains, which is Gene. So I have a really good understanding of who counters Gene because I played him so much. The first one, of course, being Mr.P. Gene has such a slow reload speed. Mr.P porters just eat through Gene's ammo. And then, of course, you've got the situation where sometimes he might pull a Mr.P porter, so just really annoying. And then you've got Penny. Penny's a great counter to Gene because of the salty barrel gadget. You can never really pull a Penny because she's always just going to pop a gadget in front of her, and you're going to end up pulling their gadget instead of her. The same goes with like Tara. So if you're playing Gene on like Brawl Ball Gem Grab, which you do, well, more so Gem Grab, you're going to be just really annoying to try and pull a Tara because of the gadget. Same goes with Eve as well. Eve, you've got a lot of hatchlings and really annoying to face off against. Charlie with her gadget. And then also the biggest counter that I like going into a Gene and like Knockout and Bounty is definitely Belle, because Gene, you normally want to group up, especially with the Magic Puff star power. Well, Belle, if Belle starts hitting a few shots, she just starts ricocheting like crazy and stops people from grouping up. So I really like Belle. So next up we have a Gray. So the best counters to him are going to be similar to like other sniper counters. So for example, like Mr.P. Although Mr.P is not good in the meta, he really does counter Gray pretty well because Gray's got a kind of slow reload speed and he hasn't got the DPS to even kill Mr.P's porter most of the time. Even got Charlie as well, similar range, but Charlie's got a Spider's gadget and could just spam out Gray with ease. And then you've actually got Gus. So on a more longer range maps, of course you can outrange a Gray, but typically snipers are quite squishy. So once Gray gets a gadget and a tap or a super, for example, onto a sniper, he's got to kill them. So he can kind of win that matchup. But with Gus will outrange a Gray and then also have enough HP, also the shield. It's really hard for a Gray to kill a Gus. So with Griff, of course, him being an anti-tank, you want kind of similar brawlers that will outrange him with ease. So you've got the likes of Lola. So Lola will be played on a lot of maps where Griff is played because Griff will open up the map, but that's just going to help Lola even more. And she can easily just outrange a Griff. And then you've also got Stu as well. Stu is really good because, again, you can break open the map with Stu, but Stu can just juke in and out of Griff's really slow attack. And then, of course, the super as well. You can dash and avoid a lot of the super damage. And then lastly, you got B, because, again, Griff will open up the map, but that's just going to help B, and B can easily outrange and kill a Griff. Countering Grom is so easy. Again, he's a thrower that is so weak against aggro. He hates it when brawlers are close to him because of his attack mechanic. It's just difficult to kill people. So first off, we've got Mico. Again, Mico can just bypass everything and just destroy Grom. Again, you can use Mico's attack to just juke out Grom's attack. So it's just impossible to kill a Mico as Grom unless you get really good timing. Again, Mortis, any assassin pretty much, and you destroy Grom. So now we're trying to counter Gus, and this is a really difficult one because this is why, of course, Gus is S tier. He's just pretty good into everything. I know he lacks DPS, but he makes up with that with the gadget and the super. So the first brawler is going to be Piper, but I'm not even sure if Piper really counters Gus that hard. I will say like a really good Piper should be able to, because of course Piper outranges Gus, but then Gus can just get like a tap and a gadget and just kill Piper, and then he has a decent amount of hit. So it's a bit of a weird one, but I think on the more open maps Piper will counter Gus. And then you have Mr.P. So Mr.P is good into Gus. Again, I know Gus will be able to farm his ghosts, so if you're unsure, like if you shoot a pet or whatever, it actually charges his ghosts, and of course making it easier for him to confirm kills with gadget. But Mr.P should be able to eat through his ammo, slow reload speed, low DPS. Mr.P is good. And then, you know, if you run multiple tanks, it's good into Gus. But I really like Darryl, because even if you knock back Darryl with your super with Gus, well, Darryl's got another one, and he could just roll on top of Gus with ease. Next up we have Hank, and of course him being a pretty bad brawler in the meta, pretty easy to counter. First brawler I hate facing off against when I play Milky Hank is Dynamike. I don't know what it is, for whatever reason, I just can't close the gap on Dynamike. And once you kind of pop your bubble with Hank, you lose that extra speed through the star power. Well, Dynamike a lot of the time just gadgets you and just supers you and destroys you. There's nothing you can even do. And then you have Frank. So again, Frank just destroys you. He destroys your walls. He just interrupts your attack with his stun, with his gadget, etc. Yeah, can't do anything. And same goes with Gale as well. Gale will just cycle super with ease. He's got the gadget if needs be just to interrupt your bubble. There's nothing you can do. So next with Jacky, the best way to counter Jacky is you just got to be careful of that gadget, and especially bushy maps. You've got to pinch out with your teammates, because once she gets close, you're pretty much dead. First brawler is going to be Frank. So you see this common theme, but still, all the years ago in competitive, you'd always go Frank into Jacky because it's just how it works. The super is just so easy to stun a Jacky and just constantly get that cycle. There's nothing Jacky can really do into that. And then again, you've got Gale. So Gale can just keep distance with ease. Jacky gets close. Well, you've got a super just to push her all the way back. Nothing she can do. And then lastly, Rosa. So funnily enough, I really like going Rosa into Jacky because Jacky doesn't have like the DPS to keep up with Rosa's shield, healing, etc. There's nothing Jacky can do. The counters with Janet are actually a lot of time pretty difficult because she can always just win her matchup with her super, hypercharge, etc. But for the most part, the reason why Janet struggles is because of her low damage. So brawlers, well, tankier options are going to be able to get close to her with ease. So brawlers again like Frank, he has the highest HP in the game. There's nothing Janet can even do. The second she even gets close, Frank can just gadget, super, etc. Next we've got Cole. So Cole again kind of got similar range. I'm not so sure who outranges who, but it doesn't matter because you've got Cole's super, you've got the gadget to close the gap, etc. You've also got Kenji. Again, Kenji can just easily get within distance of a Janet. Nothing she can do. And then lastly, Belle. Belle is just pretty good. You know, if you play Janet on like gem grab or an open map and hot zone, etc., then Belle can kill Janet easily. So next we have Jessie. This is fairly simple, of course. Jessie players hate facing off against throwers because throwers can just safely destroy her turret, and especially because Jessie turret normally goes behind walls. Yeah, throwers are going to be able to just destroy that easily. Next we've got Belle. So again, on those kind of mid-range maps on heist, hot zone, etc., Belle can just easily outrange a Jessie. Also be pretty annoying being able to shoot a turret, and then the of course shot ricochets from the turret and just creates pressure. And then lastly Squeak, because Squeak again can just easily destroy Jessie's turret. Next we have Juju. So this is a really difficult one because she's like the best pro in the game right now. Being a thrower, it's really difficult to counter her because she's also got a super that's good into tanks and counters her counters. But the first one is actually going to be Frank. The main reason being it because Juju really struggles with DPS. She hasn't got that damage that some throwers have, and Frank, of course, a lot of HP, can just easily destroy that. Of course, you've got to be careful of the pet though. And then you've got just any type of wall break, of course, can be really good, or just any type of like wall break that also destroys grass, because the best thing about Juju is a long range attack and just being able to shoot over walls. You destroy all of that, and then she's not really that good. And then you've also got other throwers on long range maps, so like Tick, Lawrie, etc., that can just be a bit better than her in knockout bounty. So with Kenji, he'll have very similar counters to other assassins like Mortis, but at the same time, Kenji's a bit flexible because he's able to just have more mobility on the map with his main attack and also more sustain with his shield star power and healing gadget. So brawlers like Frank again are going to be really good into Kenji. You saw this a lot during the world finals because Frank just has so much HP. He can eventually then just get a really good super once Kenji lands from his super gadget, etc. Nothing Kenji can really do. Next up I went with Draco. So this is an interesting one. So I know Kenji can farm a lot of supers from the Draco, but at the same time he can never really kill the Draco with a constant super and healing himself. Eventually Draco's just going to be able to just burst through Kenji easily. And then lastly I went with Primo. Again, Kenji can't really kill a Primo ever. He can be, you know, he can keep his safe distance, but then once Primo gets his super, it's just easy for him. So next we have Kit. So you can counter Kit in one of two ways. Of course, Kit is more so a support brawler. So if you're looking to counter Kit that way, you want to go with brawlers like Charlie or Cordelius, because what that does, once Cordelius or Charlie uses their super, it splits Kit away from the person that they're on top of, so you can just easily kill Kit or the person remaining. And then you also got RT in a 1 versus 1, of course, in duels or showdown. Kit, of course, can't jump onto an RT because he can just split with a gadget, just destroy Kit easily. And then lastly I went with Chester because again Chester has got really quick damage. Kit doesn't want any part of that. With Lawrie it's actually pretty difficult because the reason why he's so good in the meta, because he can just kind of do everything as a thrower that's actually decent into assassins with the help of his star power and of course his bot Lawrie. He's just good into everything. So the first brawler I think that counters Lawrie okay-ish is Tick. Reason being is because Tick will outrange a Lawrie, especially in bounty and knockout. So just decent into Lawrie. Won't say hard counters, but pretty good. And then you've got Edgar. Edgar's of course really good into Lawrie, but then again you can still outplay an Edgar with the gadget and just the super. Yeah, it's still pretty difficult. And Kenji as well. So Kenji can kill a Lawrie, but again, Lawrie can outplay still, so it's just really difficult to counter Lawrie. So countering Leon can be pretty difficult sometimes because of his super. His invisibility is like the strongest thing in the game, but brawlers with poison, so like any type of fire burning mechanic will counter him because of course it will unveil him with his invis. But of course, brawlers with poison with the main attack, Crow, is really good into Leon because you can just constantly just poke him, annoy him. At that medium range, it's just really easy, and Leon can't really deal with a Crow. And then you've got Stu. Again, a lot of people over the years have always gone Stu into Leon because you can easily kind of like juke in and out of his main attack because of the way that Leon's attack works. It's just Leon doesn't do enough consistent damage, and even if Leon catches onto a Stu up close, Stu can just dash away to safety. And then lastly, we've got Pearl. So I think Pearl's really good into Leon. I know he might feed a few supers, but you never want to go close to a Pearl because Pearl can just unleash such insane damage. Got the super to knock back Leon as well, and then you've got the burn gadget that can reveal Leon. So Pearl's a really good counter. So with Lily, of course, you want counters to assassins. Lily's one of the best assassins in that 1 versus 1. So that's why brawlers like RT are really good, especially in duels or just 1 versus 1 with the gadget. I know Lily can kind of bait out other supers with her gadgets, but eventually you run out of them. So probably the best way to counter her is try and waste her gadget, her vanish gadget, as much as possible, and then she's kind of like a sitting duck. So Jacky's really good. Again, Lily, you don't want a super on top of her Jacky because how are you going to kill Jacky in 1 versus 1 with counter crusher, etc. And then you've got Bull as well. Bull, really quick unload speed, nothing that Lily can really do up close, and same goes with Shelly as well. So now looking to counter Lola, first brawler is Belle. You've got that kind of mid-range engagement, but of course you've just got the bouncing mechanic with her main attack, so it means that of course you shoot either Lola or the clone, you're just going to constantly ricochet off each other, really annoying. And then the same goes with Penny. I absolutely love Penny into Lola because again, with Lola you want to put your clone either in front or behind you depending on the star power. Well, either way you're kind of screwing yourself over because of course you put the clone in front of you, well, you're kind of killing yourself because of the clone, and then if you put the clone behind you, well, you're just killing the clone because of Penny's attack. And then you've got Amber as well because Amber can pierce through the clone and Lola. Next we're looking to counter Lou, and Lou is pretty hard to counter seeing as he's probably the best brawler in the game right now, but typically in like Holt Zone or kind of mid-range engagements, these are the best brawlers. So I think B is a really good brawler to counter Lou because of course he can heavily outrange a Lou, and normally play Lou on a bit more of an open map or like open business, Ring of Fire, so that's where B can really excel. But also Belle, like I said, Belle's just really good at just everything. That's why I think Belle's a really good counter to most brawlers because she's just good into everything, but she can outrange a Lou. She's also got the gadget to slow Lou, etc. Then you've got Bo as well. I really like going Bo into Lou because he kind of serves the same purpose with his mines being able to just control an area, so you got to bear that. Also outranges Lou, will out damage Lou more consistently. Of course throwers are really annoying for Lou, and then you've got Poco's protective tunes gadget. That's why you've seen Poco a lot more in the meta because that gadget makes it so you don't freeze through Lou's main attack or super, so you can just easily just run through it Poco's gadget. Best way to counter Maisie is to open your eyes. No, I'm only joking. I'll try not to hate Maisie too much, but Maisie's starting to become a really good brawler. One of the best counters is of course going to be throwers. She does have a decent amount of HP and she's still got the dash to kind of help her close the gap, but throwers should just be able to have a field day on her because she is an anti-tank for the most part, an anti-tank marksman. And then of course you got Stu. Stu can just juke in and out of the main attack a lot easier. I know Stu's a little bit on the squishy side, but not so much with the HP buff, but yeah, most times Stu will be alright. Belle again will outrange Maisie with ease, and they're kind of played in similar maps kind of. And then you've got Penny as well, similar range, but Penny will just be able to get more consistent damage with her main attack. So next we have Mandy. So Mandy of course is pretty easy to counter on most maps, but we're talking about the longer range maps, and for most part Nanny will be able to counter Mandy because she kind of got the similar range. But the biggest thing is definitely return to sender gadget, of course, with Mandy's super with really high damage, or you can just deflect that with ease with return to sender. Of course it needs good timing though. Throwers of course are pretty good into Mandy. I know she's got the gadget to potentially kill throwers, but she's super squishy, so throwers are really good against her. And of course you see a lot of those longer range throwers like Tick, etc., and Knockout and Bounty. And then of course you've got Mortis. So Mortis is a really good late pick in Bounty specifically, or just some other assassins like that, and they can just easily kill Mandy. So now moving on to Max. So Max is one of the most difficult brawlers to counter because she's just pretty good into everything. Literally the super allows you to win so many matchups, and so does the dash gadget. So Crow is probably the better counters out there because Crow can just outpoke Max, especially when it comes down to 1 versus 1. And then you've got the slows as well, which can counter out Max's super. super. And then you've got Gus, so in a 1 versus 1, Max has the wiggles, especially against other snipers, but Gus has a decent amount of HP, and of course, with a really big projectile, it's going to be pretty easy to hit Max, who's normally difficult to hit with other snipers, of course, that have a thinner projectile. And then you've got Stu, again, another brawler, where Stu is always played into Max, especially if it's like Hot Zone or a more closer range map. Stu just destroys Max in a 1 versus 1. And then lastly, Pam. So Pam's really good. Even though Pam's not great in the meta, Pam's always been good into Max because she's pretty thick, and Max doesn't have the DPS to kill tankier brawlers. So next up, we've got Meeple. So by far the biggest counters I find for tankier brawlers. It's just impossible to kill them with Meeple because he hasn't got the reload speed or the DPS to kill any of them. I know that with the super, it can kind of, you know, help win the 1 versus 1, especially with tanks hiding behind walls. But yeah, any brawler that's an assassin tank, so Frank, Kenji, Ash with the rats, you know, any type of spawner, Meeple just really struggles with. Of course, he can eventually kill throwers once he's got his super, but he's super squishy, so throwers can kill Meeple for the most part. So Meg is next, and she's actually really easy brawler to counter right now because she's pretty bad in the meta. But for the most part, Colette is a really good counter to make because it's kind of that threshold above 7k HP where Colette does really well into. So Colette's good for that reason. You've also got Lou as well because, again, Meg does have a bigger hitbox in that mecha form. And you've also got the fact that she's pretty much kind of like a semi-tank, so Lou's just really good in that mid-interaction, and of course Lou outranges Meg, and Meg's normally played in Hot Zone, Lou's really good there. And then you've got like Lola and B, so again, these brawlers can outrange Meg, and they've also got the DPS to kill her quickly in mech form. Next up, we've got the brawlers to counter Melodie. So the first brawler is going to be Clancy, because Clancy is going to be really good with the super. Normally, you know, some supers are really risky against Melodie, because of course she can dash away from them like a Tara super or a Lou super, but Clancy really widespread and really easy to get a lot of damage onto Melodie. And then you've got Cordelius, because when you super Melodie with Cordelius, it removes all of her notes, and of course the best thing about Melodie is just a super, having 3 of them. Well, she can't use any of them inside of Cordelius' Shadow Realm. And then lastly you got Buzz, so Buzz can easily collect onto Melodie, and he can just destroy in a 1 versus 1. So next up we have Mico. So Mico has a few big counters out there, one counter being the tankier brawlers because he hasn't got the DPS to kill them, and you've got, of course, brawlers with quick unload speed. So the first one's actually going to be RT, because in his split form he can just delete Mico really easily, nothing that Mico can do. And then you've got Bull, so again, brawlers with quick unload speeds like a Bull. If you can just time it correctly and just open your eyes, you can just destroy Mico pretty quickly. And then the last one's going to be Stu, actually. So the reason being is because Mico really struggles to kill a Stu because he can just constantly dash away. Next up we have Mo. So Mo was kind of the master at everything when he was meta, and now he's like a D tier option, so it's pretty, you know, everyone counters him. But I would say one of the best counters is Penny. Main reason being because you can easily outrange a Mo, and then you've also maybe got a salty barrel gadget. If Mo decides to come up close with a super, you can just keep distance easily with a Penny. Next we've got Darryl. So again, Darryl can pretty much, you know, run all over a Mo because Mo's supercharge rate is really slow right now, so a Darryl super can just easily kill a Mo, and I don't think Mo has the DPS to kill tanks really anymore, so yeah, Darryl can kill that with ease. And then you got throws. So I know that Mo can destroy throwers once he gets his super, but for the most part, you know, brawlers like Lawrie that are at least decent into aggro still are going to be really hard for Mo to kill. So next we're Mortis, pretty easy. The first brawler is Jacky. So always for years and years in competitive, Jacky's always going to be one of the hardest brawlers, because the second you get close, well, Jacky can just super, just tap auto aim, you're just dead all of the time. It takes Mortis so long to kill a Jacky. The only way Mortis can kill Jacky is through chaining bats. Next we got Shade. So Shade's really annoying for Mortis to deal with, because of course Shade can go through walls, can walk on water. Well, Mortis can't do anything about that, of course. And then we have Bull as well. So again, Bull has a really quick unload speed. Mortis can't do anything against that. Shelly with super, Gale with gadget and super. Mortis just hates these brawlers. Next up we have Mr.P. So Mr.P has 0 DPS, and whenever he's meta, he just doesn't have damage anyway. So of course the best brawler to counter him is going to be Edgar, because Edgar does pierce through the portals if needed, but the main reason, of course, you can just jump onto Mr.P, doesn't have the DPS to deal with it. Mortis as well, you can just dash onto Mr.P with ease, nothing Mr.P can do. And then lastly, Bibi. So Bibi's really good against Mr.P because you've got the star power that can just easily close in on Mr.P. You've got the gadget to heal you. There's nothing Mr.P can do. So now moving on to Nani. The best brawlers to counter Nani on those longer range maps, you're going to be starting off with Jean. Reason being, Jean is a little bit tankier, so of course he doesn't get killed by Nani's super. and the main attack as well. It's going to take multiple bursts to take down Jean, but the main thing actually is because the return to sender gadget is going to get no value versus Jean, because of course Jean is a poke brawler, deals very little damage, so return to sender is not going to be good against that. Next you got Max. So Max is going to be really good against Nanny because you can use the dash gadget to dash into the peep and not receive any damage. And then of course you just got Max who can wiggle in and out of Nanny's attack. Good Max players counter Nanny's with ease. And then you got Darryl. So again, on knockout and bounties, some situations you can play Darryl into a Nanny. And then also you've got the super that can literally just tank the majority of the peep damage. So Darryl's good at that. And then you've weirdly got Tick. So I think Tick's a good counter. I know that Nanny's peep can kill Tick pretty easily if the Tick doesn't press the gadget at the right time, and you also got the Tick head to tank that as well, and Tick can just poke at Nanny, especially with Tick's long range. Next we have Nita. So by far the biggest counters to Nita are going to be those throwers, but the throwers that are good on like Brawl Ball and Gem Grab, so we're talking like Barley, Willow, Juju, Lawrie and Lawrie. Those are going to be really annoying for Nita to face off against. I know she has a decent amount of HP, so she's not going to die straight away, but she's also just going to feed them infinite supers and never get close to them. So yeah, really annoying. And then you got Spike. Spike's always been a good counter to Nita. You can outrange a Nita, you can super etc. Really easy to deal with. And then lastly you got Griff. Reason being is you can open up the map, and Nita just hates being outranged because of course she's got very limited range. So next we've got Otis. So again, a similar kind of brawler to counter Otis with. They're going to be those pesky throwers on game modes like Hot Zone, Gem Grab, Brawl Ball. So again, Barley, Juju, Lawrie and Lawrie, they're going to be good into Otis because he has no way to close the gap onto them. You've also got Stu. So Stu counters a lot of brawlers in 1v1s, but the reason why he's just so good is because he can just juke in and out of Otis' attack pretty easily. And then you've also got the fact that you might be able to avoid his super with Stu's gadget and just his super as well. And just typically just any brawler that can outrange Otis. So next up we have Pam. Here are the main counters of Pam, which you see even when she is meta. The first one being Jessie. Main reason being it's because Pam has a bigger hitbox, and Jessie is just really good into those tankier brawlers. It's going to feed a lot of supers for Jessie. She's going to get infinite hypercharges against Pam, always in Hot Zone. And then we have Lou. Again, Lou's always used into Pam because Lou can just easily farm super from Pam and just keep her away. She has a lot of HP, so Lou will feed a lot of supers from that. And then next you got Colette. So I know that Pam heals a bit, but Colette can still just shred through a lot of that HP, and especially with the super, there's no way for Pam to really counter Colette, especially because Colette's got a gadget of her own that can heal her. And lastly, 8-bit. So on the more longer range maps, maybe in Gem Grab, you go 8-bit because 8-bit's tanky himself and deals a lot of damage, which you need against Pam's healing. So next up we have Pearl. So the biggest way to counter her is just because of her mechanic. You want to keep being aggro and consistently pushing into her so she doesn't have time to build up her attack, because that means she deals more damage, of course, with the heat. But the first brawler is going to be Lou. So Lou's actually really good to counter Pearl in knockout and bouncy, believe it or not, because Pearl, I believe, yeah, does have a bigger hitbox. So Lou can just farm supers through that. Yeah, it's just a really good matchup for Lou. I see pros go this consistently all the time. And then next you have 8-bit. So the reason being is because Pearl likes facing off against squishier brawlers, because what Pearl can do, she can jump out of a bush and gadget and just kill squishy brawlers with ease. So brawlers like 8-bit are super tanky, also can outrange Pearl, and typically see Pearl on like Gem Grab and loads of lanes and like knockout and bounty. Well, 8-bit is decent there, so he can take her down. And then lastly, Buster. Weirdly enough, I know Buster is a tank, but Pearl has a lot of projectiles per attack, so a Buster shield can pretty much kill a Pearl if timed correctly. So next up with Penny. Penny shares the same counters pretty much as Jessie because of course the turrets. So the first brawlers are going to be throwers. Again, typically the throwers that you see on like Hot Zone, Gem Grab, Brawl Ball. You're going to see Barley, Juju, Lawrie, etc. Next, we've got Squeak. So again, you're going to be able to destroy that turret with ease just with your main attack. You've also got Kenji. So Kenji, it's going to be good into Penny because she doesn't have the DPS to deal with most assassins. But of course, you don't want to get on top of Penny because the Salty Barrel can deal like 7k damage with a shot. So Kenji can kind of stay out that distance, but also get close enough to deal enough damage, especially with the super, etc. And then lastly, weirdly enough, I went with Bo because Bo you can use to destroy a lot of walls, which of course means there's less value for Penny's turret, and you can outrange or kind of keep a similar range to Penny. So Piper is next. Of course, Piper is kind of a sniper that's good into everything. She counters a lot of brawlers, but the first brawler to counter her with is absolutely Nanny. So Nanny can of course one-tap a Piper, but you've also got the fact that the return to sender is just a jail get out free card. It's just a free kill every single time. Nothing Piper can do. Just swap lane if you're facing off against a Nanny if you're Piper, Next up, throwers, of course, are going to be really good against Piper. She's super squishy, and you see a lot of throwers on Knockout and Bounty. You know, you likes of Sprout, Tick, etc. And then lastly, weirdly enough, Kit. So I know Piper can jump away if timed correctly, but the reason why Kit is so good is just because of the sneak. You go the invisibility gadget, and you can most of the time just free swipe Piper so quickly. You've seen this used effectively a lot in pro play. Next we have Poco. So of course Poco is a support brawler which really lacks the damage, so tanks, they're not going to be his best friend, but the first brawler is going to be Ems, weirdly enough. So Ems has always been such a good counter to Poco because of the slow and the quick burst. Yeah, Ems is a fantastic counter, even though she's not the best right now. Always been a good counter to Poco, double tank, etc. You've also got Mortis, so of course there's nothing that Poco can do when a Mortis is close to him. And then you've got Jessie. So the reason why Jessie's so good is because Poco likes brawlers clumping up, but Jessie of course gets a lot of value into that. And you normally pair Poco with tanks. Jessie's good into tanks, farms a lot of supers, etc. You see where I'm going here? This share very similar like game modes like Hot Zone, Gem Grab, so Jessie's a perfect counter. So next up we've got RT. So RT's a very difficult one, especially since his gadget got reworked. He's able to counter everything, so one of the best counters has to be throwers, but at the same time RT has a lot of HP, and throwers like squishy brawlers, so although they have a decent matchup against RT, doesn't fully counter him for sure. And then you've got Gus. So the reason why I went with Gus is because RT normally likes the squishier snipers because he can use his HP and push up the map. But Gus, it takes a lot of taps from RT. And then of course Gus can easily hit RT. RT's got a big hitbox, so Gus can just have fun with that. Bo, I don't think it's the best matchup, but I just thought maybe at that mid range, you know, if Bo was a bit better, he could definitely counter RT pretty well, especially with his gadget being able to tank a shot, etc. And then lastly I went with Max. So Max again isn't like completely the best, but because of RT's really thin projectile, a good Max can really create good pressure onto RT. So the moment you've been waiting for is definitely how to counter Rico. So Rico's going to get countered by throwers. Again, it's because he's squishy, so typically Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, you want to be using throwers to counter him, maybe like Sprout, Barley, etc. A really good counter is going to be Brock, because on like Knockout or just maybe in some other situations, Brock can just destroy the walls with his rocket fuel gadget. And then Rico has less value because he has no walls. Without walls, Rico is terrible because, of course, that's just his whole mechanic. And then, of course, you got Piper. So the reason why Piper's so good is because you can two-tap Rico with Piper and the gadget. And then you got a super to break open the map. So really good. And then lastly, Stu. So the reason being, Stu counters a lot of brawlers, but particularly Rico, because you can use the Stu gadget to break open the map. And if you're thinking on like Hard Rock Mine, for example, Stu just destroys Rico, because if he destroys certain walls, then Rico just doesn't have a purpose on the map. So next we have Rosa. So pretty easy to counter in this meta, but by far the best counter, of course, is going to be Shelly. You could just farm supers from Rosa, nothing Rosa can really do. Next we've got M. So of course you got the knockback, and then you've got the slow. It's just beautiful into a Rosa. And then lastly you got Frank. So Frank can just infinitely stun a Rosa, and there's nothing she can do. So next up we have Ruff. So he gets counters by a lot of brawlers in this meta, but in particular, you know, I'm thinking of Ruff's good maps like Ring of Fire, Hard Rock Mine. Particularly, a lot of people go Buzz into Ruff's because you can just hook onto Ruff's really easily. There's nothing that he can do into a Buzz, so definitely Buzz. Next, Sprout. So again, Ruff's is super squishy. A lot of time, again, like Hard Rock Mine or other situations, I used to always go Sprout into Ruff, so you got to go that. And again, just any type of like assassin that can get on top of Ruffs easily. So next up we have Sam. So Sam is a pretty easy brawler to counter in this meta, but there's a few brawlers in particular, of course, anti-tanks that are going to be really good into Sam. So the first one being Surge. The reason why Surge is so good is because he can separate Sam from his knuckles easily, and there's just no point really pushing a Surge unless you get a good time gadget with Sam. It's pretty difficult. Next being Lou. So of course Lou can just farm infinite supers, nothing Sam can really do. And then lastly Griff, because you can break open walls, and of course Sam wants walls because that's how he gets a lot of value out of the healing through his star power. So next up we have Sandy. So Sandy's actually a really difficult one to counter because even though he lacks DPS, he can win a lot of matchups against tanks because he can just farm super from them. So the first brawler is going to be Nita, and although I don't think Nita actually fully counters, I just think it's still a good matchup for her because once she gets the bear, it will put Sandy into spawn, and it's just more effective. And you've also got Janet. So Janet can, of course, scout Sandy's super through her gadget and just keep more range and just poke at Sandy. You've then got Kenji as well. So I know Sandy can farm super from Kenji, but I think Kenji can just get close to Sandy really easily. So now moving on to Shade, starting off with Frank. So again, Shade just can't kill tanks. He doesn't have the DPS. I'd actually weirdly say that right now in Shade's spot, it kind of okays tanks because he can farm supers, but still, he can never really kill them in 1 versus 1. And then you've got Lou, so Lou can literally just throw a super onto a wall, and Shade can never go through that wall, so great counter. And then lastly, Jacky. Again, Jacky can shoot through walls, which again is why Shade is so good, so there's just no point facing off against Jacky. So next we've got Shelly, of course, her being an anti-tank. There's some obvious counters out there. The first brawler being Stu. Of course, Stu can just destroy in a 1v1, way more consistent damage. And then you've got Nita, so Nita's really good into Shelly, of course, again, kind of similar range, played on the similar maps. And then Shelly just can't really do anything with Bruce Bear. And then you've got Spike, again, can just keep distance really easily, more consistent damage. And then finally Penny. Next up we got Spike, so the best way to counter him is, of course, by learning Curveball, which you can easily just YouTube that. And there's a couple of spots which are just really consistent to juke out Curveball. But if you can't, you can just counter him by throwers. He's super squishy, so throwers can be really good into him, especially like Barley, Dynamike, etc. You then got Squeak again, because Spike is really squishy, so Squeak can just kill with a couple of shots with ease. Next we've got Carl, because Carl is just really good into Spike. He can just be really aggressive, and Spike's squishy, and Carl deals a lot of damage with his main attack. And then you've got Piper again. Spike is squishy, so Piper can get a couple of taps in. So now moving on to Sprout. Sprout has a very similar counter to some other throwers, but particularly like Grom. So Sprout really can't deal damage to brawlers close to him, so that's going to be brawlers like Mico and Mortis. They're just going to be able to just destroy him, you know, Edgar as well. Nothing that Sprout can really do, even if he tries to outplay them with his super. And then finally Frank. So again, tanks are just really Sprout's worst enemy. He has no damage and no way to deal with them up close, so Frank just destroys Sprout. So next up we have Squeak. So you've guessed it as well, Squeak counters the anti-tanks, so his counters are gonna be assassins and tanks for the most part. So assassins are good against Squeak because there's a very slow reload speed and no quick burst damage, so brawlers like Mortis are really good into him. Of course, again, Edgar, Mico, etc. Brawlers like Ash are going to be really good into Squeak because again, he just doesn't have the damage to keep up with Ash, especially up close. Kenji as well, just like Mortis, and Buzz. All of these brawlers destroy him. So now we're looking at ways to counter Stu, and of course, Stu's just such a good 1 versus 1 brawler, but there are some weaknesses to his overall kit. Of course, he lacks damage, although tanks do feed his hypercharge a lot, so you've got to be a little bit careful of that. I think the first one is going to be healers, so again, he doesn't have the damage to keep up and kill them. So you're seeing a lot of like berry compositions to counter Stu in hot zone. You're seeing Poco a lot to counter Stu in hot zone, Byron compositions to counter Stu in hot zone, etc. You've then got snipers as well, so keeping your distance is the best way to counter Stu. You've got to be really disciplined and not feed his super, which is impossible for your randoms, but good players, they can be disciplined, so snipers can be pretty good into Stu. And then you've got roughs because of the sandbags. You know, Stu just has to eat a lot of ammo to destroy those sandbags. And you've also got Penny. Again, you've got the gadget to tank and you can outrange a Stu. And then finally Sandy, because again, you just can't really deal with a Sandy as Stu. So now moving on to Surge. The best brawlers to counter him with are going to be throwers, because Surge is pretty squishy. There's no way to really deal with throwers unless you get his super, but of course throwers can really bully him, especially at that first level. He's super slow, so it's really easy and vulnerable to kill. Next you got roughs, so just like Stu, you just can't really deal with roughs, especially with sandbags. They can just keep distance really easily, nothing that Surge can do. And then you've got Tara. Surge can't really deal with brawlers with multiple pets because, of course, he's got a slow reload speed and he's got a single shot attack. So, you know, Tara pets, Charlie, spiders, etc. can be really good into him. And then you got Spike. So Spike can just outrange him and of course tank shots with that gadget. So now moving on to Tara. So Tara, of course, is going to be really annoyed by those throwers, but I think on maps like where she's really good on, here's some good counters. First off, we've got Otis. Otis is really good, outrange Tara. You've then got the vision gear to keep tabs on her, and you've got the fat splatter gadget, which literally counters her pets. So that's why Otis has played a lot into Tara in pro play. And then you've got Sandy, of course. Sandy can pierce through the pets. Sandy can out-wall peek Tara, and in that mid-range fight just destroys Tara. And then you've got throwers, as I've mentioned, and you've also got Janet. Janet can pierce through the pets, can scout Tara with ease with a gadget, etc. It's just Tara's worst nightmare. So now moving on to Tick. So just like Sprout and Grom, really hates it when brawlers are close to him, but of course Tick at least has a knockback with the gadget and at least has a bit of protection with the super. But still, Mico, Mortis, they're just going to be so good into Tick, because Tick hates it when there's just sustained pressure on him. He hasn't got the reload speed to keep up, and His attacks are really hard to hit up close. And then you also have the likes of Bibi. So Bibi's going to be good into Tick because Bibi can just sustain pressure so easily with how fast she is. Tick can just never kill a Bibi. And then of course you got Darryl's. Darryl's really good into Tick. Again, in Knockout and Bounty, where Tick's throwing his head, well, you can just Darryl super into that, tank a lot of that damage for your teammates, and it just destroys Tick. And finally, moving on to Willow. So Willow is a little bit of a weird one because she's actually not that weak into a lot of things. I think the biggest counter to her is actually just other throwers, because you've got like Barley, who's very similar to Willow but outranges Willow. You've got Juju, you've got Larry and Lawrie, you've got all the other throwers that beat her. And again, like, she's still pretty good into tanks because you've got a super to, of course, take them away from her. But tanks are actually good into her because she doesn't deal damage quickly. So by the time she's about ready to kill them, well, the poison's trickling down. They've just killed her faster because that's just how it works, right? So that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know whether you learned anything, whether I missed out on anything, because there's a lot of brawlers. I probably missed out on a few counters. But that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.